In light of today's gospel, I'd like to share with you the story behind two of the treasures that will soon become part of our renovated church. First of all, let me thank the many parishioners who encouraged us to obtain sacred furnishings from churches that have closed in Baltimore City. And Archbishop Laurie offered the same encouragement. And thanks to your support and a little providence, we were able to obtain a tabernacle from Annunciation Parish in Rosedale, which is northeast part of Baltimore, a beautiful sanctuary lamp from a church in Pennsylvania, and a baptismal font and Stations of the Cross that will soon have a new home here at St. Michael. While looking through a catalog of available liturgical furnishings, one item immediately caught my attention: the baptismal font from St. William of York in West Baltimore. My brother Tim and his wife Kim and his family belonged to that parish, and I thought all three of their sons had been baptized there. But later I learned that my youngest nephew, Benjamin Christopher, was baptized at that very font. I called the parish immediately and I asked them to hold it for us. When Brian Crumpwell, our director of parish operations, and I went to see the condition of the font, something else caught my eye: the Stations of the Cross. And I asked if they were available as well. And the pastor smiled and he said, "You're the first person who's asked about both the font and the stations." Wow, how incredibly lucky I was. To many people, they were simply furnishings from a church that was closing, but to us, they were treasures. And if you haven't done so, look at the posters displayed in the back of the hall, and you'll see these sacred pieces that will soon become part of our renovated church. On the left side, on the poster, you'll see the baptism picture of Benjamin right above the font. And on this poster by the kitchen, you'll see what the original stations looked like and how they will look like in our church after they are refinished. But what makes them valuable isn't simply their craftsmanship. Think about what that baptismal font has witnessed over the years. Hundreds of babies, children, and adults were baptized there. Parents professed their faith. Godparents pledged their support. And adults and young people were welcomed into the church through the OCIA. Now think about those Stations of the Cross. How many people prayed before them during the season of Lent? How many grieving families stood before them after the death of a loved one? How many people found hope by meditating on the suffering and death of Christ? These aren't simply beautiful objects. These sacred objects have become silent witnesses to decades of prayers, tears, hope, and faith. That's why they're treasures. And isn't that exactly what Jesus is teaching us today? The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, like a merchant searching for fine pearls. And the point of both parables isn't wealth, it's recognition. Not everyone recognizes a treasure when they see one. Some people saw a used church furnishings. We saw sacred treasures that still have a mission. That's why King Solomon's prayer in our first reading from the first book of Kings is so important. When God invited him to ask for anything, Solomon did not ask for riches, military power, or a long life. He asked for wisdom. Why? Because wisdom teaches us to recognize what is truly valuable. Without wisdom, we spend the rest of our lives chasing things that never satisfy us. With wisdom, we discover that God's kingdom is worth more than anything else. The psalmist understood this when he prayed in our responsorial psalm: "The law of your mouth is more precious to me than thousands of gold and silver pieces." He had already found the treasure. Then St. Paul reminds us in his letter to the Romans that all things work for good for those who love God. He's not saying that everything that happens is good. Suffering still hurts us. Loss still breaks our hearts. Illness still changes our lives. But when Christ is our greatest treasure, nothing, not even suffering, can take away what matters the most. God can use everything to draw us closer to him. So, friends, Jesus leaves us with a question today. What treasure are you searching for? Is it success, security, comfort, the approval of others, or is it Christ? Because whatever we treasure most will shape every decision we make. And as excited as I am about our renovated church, the greatest treasure will never be the tabernacle, the baptismal font, the Stations of the Cross, or any other piece of sacred art. Those things are beautiful because they point beyond themselves. They lead us to Jesus Christ. He is the treasure. And everything in this church exists for one purpose: to help us encounter him. So perhaps our prayer this week should be Solomon's prayer. Lord, give me wisdom. Help me to recognize the treasure of your kingdom. Help me to see Christ in your word, in the Eucharist, in my neighbor, and in the ordinary moments of daily life. Give me the courage and the joy to choose you above everything else. Because the greatest treasure has never been hidden in a field. He is here, waiting for us in his church, in his sacraments, and most especially in the Eucharist. Amen.